So please, can you tell us who sent her there, since you don't agree she should be there?
I said I do not agree she should receive special treatment. She was transferred, I learned after the fact, to the same level facility, and that is a question for the Bureau of Prisons. I was not involved in that at all. The same level facility, I don't know why, but you know, instead of talking about Ghislaine Maxwell, who hopefully will die in prison,
Testimony of Attorney General Pam Bondi regarding the preferential treatment of a convicted sex offender. We analyze the evidence of political interference in federal prison transfers. We follow the money and the influence from the Department of Justice to the highest levels of the administration. This is a forensic examination of a collapse in institutional integrity. The facts are documented in the records of the United States Congress. The evidence is contained in the testimony of the highest law enforcement officer in the land. We will proceed now with the claim, the evidence, the law, and the ultimate accountability. Let's play this clip.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Attorney General Bondi, I think you and pretty much everybody else here and throughout the country believes that convicted sex offenders don't deserve special treatment or privileges in prison. And yet Ghislaine Maxwell, Jeffrey Epstein's co-conspirator, received perk after perk in prison. In July, she had a 2-day interview with your deputy and President Trump's former defense attorney, Todd Blanche. Just days after that, Maxwell was transferred from a federal correctional institution in Florida to a minimum security camp in Texas.
Bondi testified before the House Committee on the Judiciary. During this testimony, she addressed the prison transfer of Ghislaine Maxwell. Maxwell is the convicted co-conspirator of Jeffrey Epstein. Attorney General Bondi claimed that Maxwell was transferred to a same-level facility. That is a lie. The evidence shows that Maxwell was moved from a federal correctional institution in Florida to a minimum security camp in Texas. A minimum security camp is not the same level as a federal correctional institution. It is a lower security designation. Under federal regulations, sex offenders are normally ineligible for minimum security camps. By claiming the facilities were of the same level, the Attorney General attempted to obscure a significant and unauthorized downgrade in Maxwell's incarceration conditions. Let's play this clip.
Let me be crystal clear on this. No. And
Thank you.
Let me keep going. No, let me keep going.
Perfect. Well, I
did not know she was being transferred.
I asked you yes or no.
She was not transferred to a lower level.
Mr. Chairman, please stop the clock and remind the witness of the rules. One rule she needs to understand here.
And I'm glad that we're agreeing. So when we're agreeing, we can move on to some other things.
When
but
we're
I
not
want you to
agreeing,
know that every time she does get these perks, and it's been publicly reported, that the folks she's abused, the survivors who are sitting here, they see themselves as being denied justice. They feel re-traumatized. And I'm glad that we agree on that. But she should not be in that prison.
In the specific words of the Speaker, Attorney General Pam Bondi is the authority in question. She was asked directly who ordered Maxwell to be transferred to the minimum security prison. She was asked who signed off on special privileges for a convicted sex offender. Her response was definitive. She stated she did not know she was transferred until after the fact. She stated that Maxwell was transferred to the same level facility. She then attempted to shift the focus of the hearing. She told the committee they should be talking about a woman who died on a subway instead of talking about Ghislaine Maxwell. This quote identifies a clear intent to deflect from a direct inquiry into Department of Justice operations. Let's play this clip.
But that begs the question, who ordered her to be transferred to the minimum security prison that she was ineligible for? Who signed off on the special privileges? Was it Mr. Blanche? Was it one of your other subordinates? So please, can you tell us who sent her there, since you don't agree she should be there?
I said I do not agree she should receive special treatment. She was transferred, I learned after the fact, to the same level facility, and that is a question for the Bureau of Prisons.
They include private workouts. They include personal mail and secretarial services. The facility in Texas where Maxwell was moved is nicknamed Club Fed. The evidence proves that in July, Maxwell had a 2-day interview with Todd Blanche. Todd Blanche is the Deputy Attorney General. He is also the former defense attorney for Donald Trump. Just days after this 2-day interview with the Deputy Attorney General, the transfer occurred. This transfer moved a convicted sex offender to a facility for which she would normally be ineligible. The evidence proves a direct temporal link between a meeting with the Deputy Attorney General and a preferential change in prison conditions. The power and control analysis for each piece of evidence reveals a pattern of influence. The timing of the transfer is the first evidence piece. The transfer happened just days after the interview with Todd Blanche. This demonstrates that the Deputy Attorney General has the power to influence the Bureau of Prisons. The second evidence piece is Maxwell's refusal to cooperate. Reports indicate that Maxwell told another committee she would not cooperate unless she receives clemency from Donald Trump. This shows that Maxwell is attempting to use her knowledge as leverage to gain a pardon or commutation. The third evidence piece is the special privileges. Puppy time and private workouts are not standard for sex offenders in the federal system. The existence of these perks proves that someone within the administration exerted control to override standard operating procedures. The Attorney General's claim that she learned of the transfer after the fact suggests a lack of control or a deliberate effort to distance herself from the decision. Let's play this clip.
I am not here to testify before Congress. You are. That is your job today. That's what you're getting paid for.
With attack.
I want you to know that your own DOJ employee, he's recently been demoted and had some other problems, advises on pardons. Do you think he will be advising Mr. Trump on any kind of clemency or pardon for Ghislaine Maxwell?
I'm not going to speculate, and you couldn't even identify properly.
The mission of the Department of Justice is to enforce federal law and defend the rule of law. It is to protect the American people from exploitation and promote public safety. When the Department of Justice allows a convicted sex offender to receive special privileges, it creates a two-tiered system of justice. In a two-tiered system, the powerful and those with political connections are protected. The law requires that all persons be treated equally under the statutes of the United States. Federal regulations specifically define eligibility for different levels of prison security. These regulations are designed to ensure that the punishment fits the crime and that safety is maintained. Moving an ineligible sex offender to a minimum security facility is a violation of the standard application of these regulations. Perjury is the act of lying under oath. If a witness knowingly provides false information to Congress about a material fact, such as the security level of a prison, they may be subject to criminal prosecution. The professional judgment on responsibility and fitness is clear based on the sources. Attorney General Pam Bondi's conduct during the hearing was described by observers as evasive and unprofessional. She used whataboutism to avoid answering direct questions about the Epstein case. She brought up the death of Irina Zarutska, a case involving a subway death which had no legal relevance to the transfer of Ghislaine Maxwell. This tactic is a sign of being professionally unprepared or unwilling to be held to account. She responded to members of Congress with phrases like, "I bet we are, and it is all about you." Observers noted that she acted with a lack of witness decorum, comparing her behavior to that of a child or a teenager. Her failure to identify who signed off on the transfer papers for Maxwell is a significant lapse in her duty as the nation's top law enforcement officer. The expert authority stack reinforces these findings. Former Attorney General William P. Barr published an article in the Wall Street Journal regarding Pam Bondi in the Epstein files. This demonstrates that her predecessors are closely monitoring her actions. The ranking members of the House Judiciary Committee have highlighted the re-traumatization of survivors who see Maxwell receiving perks. These survivors are sitting in the hearing room seeking justice. Representatives from Illinois and Vermont have cited evidence of a cover-up regarding the Epstein files. They have identified senior Trump officials with confirmed ties to Jeffrey Epstein, including Howard Lutnick, John Phelan, and Stephen Feinberg. These officials were appointed to senior positions despite their names appearing in the Epstein files. The Department of Justice has reportedly not asked these officials about their ties, which suggests a failure to investigate potential criminal activity. Institutional accountability is now the focus. The Department of Justice is facing accusations of being weaponized to protect political allies while targeting perceived enemies. Members of Congress have called for the impeachment and removal of Attorney General Bondi. They cite her passion for protecting child traffickers as grounds for this action. There are reports that prosecutors are quitting the Department of Justice in large numbers due to being forced to prioritize low-level cases over corporate crime and public corruption. There are also reports that Donald Trump has complained about Bondi, calling her weak and ineffective. This indicates a lack of confidence from both political opponents and her own administration. The failure to provide answers about who authorized the Maxwell transfer represents a breakdown in the oversight function of the courts and enforcement agencies. The procedural consequences will follow. There is a documented record of the Attorney General's testimony. This record can be used in future impeachment proceedings or criminal investigations regarding perjury. The House Judiciary Committee has the power to issue further subpoenas for Bureau of Prisons records and for the testimony of Todd Blanche. These records will show exactly who signed the transfer orders. If it is proven that the Attorney General or her deputy bypassed federal regulations to grant perks to a sex offender, they may face internal disciplinary actions or external legal challenges. The quest for the unredacted Epstein files continues with over 3 million files still under review or withheld. The accountability for these actions will be determined by the strict application of the law and the continued oversight by the legislative branch. The evidence of a two-tiered justice system is before you. You have seen the testimony and the forensic contradictions. Stay informed as this case moves through the formal channels of government accountability. Subscribe to this channel for more forensic news analysis. Attorney General Pam Bondi appeared before the House Judiciary Committee to answer for the operations of the Department of Justice. The hearing focused heavily on the case of Jeffrey Epstein and Ghislaine Maxwell. Representative Ross of North Carolina led the questioning regarding Maxwell's incarceration. Ross stated that survivors of Maxwell's abuse feel re-traumatized when they see her receiving special treatment. The Attorney General agreed that sex offenders should not receive special treatment, but she could not explain why Maxwell was currently receiving it. This creates a logical and legal contradiction in the department's position. The specific perks afforded to Maxwell at the Texas facility were detailed in the hearing. Beyond puppy time and private workouts, Maxwell was reported to have access to secretarial services and personal mail. These are highly unusual privileges for a person convicted of sex trafficking of minors. The nickname Club Fed for the Texas facility underscores the public perception that the prison is not a place of rigorous punishment. The Attorney General's insistence that she was unaware of these developments suggests that the Deputy Attorney General, Todd Blanche, may be operating with significant autonomy. The role of Todd Blanche is central to the power analysis. Blanche served as Donald Trump's defense attorney before becoming the Deputy Attorney General. His two-day interview with Maxwell just prior to her transfer raises questions about what was discussed. If the interview concerned Maxwell's cooperation in exchange for better treatment or clemency, it would represent a significant use of executive power. The Attorney General refused to speculate on whether her employees would advise the president on a pardon for Maxwell. Representative Ross noted that Maxwell's lawyer has openly dangled the offer of clemency. Maxwell has reportedly taken the fifth in response to every question in other committee hearings, indicating she is withholding information. The implication is that she is waiting for a deal. The Attorney General stated she hopes Maxwell dies in prison, but her actions in allowing the transfer to a minimum security camp contradict that stated hope. The hearing also touched on the broader Epstein files. Representative Ballant of Vermont reminded the committee that the Epstein case revealed a multi-dead international criminal conspiracy. She noted that the powerful have been protected while survivors have rarely seen accountability. The unredacted files contain evidence of financial crimes, political corruption, and sex trafficking. Bellink specifically named Howard Lutnick, the Secretary of Commerce, as having ties to Epstein. She stated that Lutnick visited Epstein's Island in 2012, which was 4 years after Epstein was first convicted as a sexual abuser. The Attorney General's response to these names was dismissive. She stated that Secretary Lutnick has addressed those ties himself. When asked if the Department of Justice has asked Lutnick or Secretary Phelan or Deputy Secretary Feinberg about their ties, she claimed she did not know or was stunned by the question. This refusal to answer direct questions about senior administration officials suggests a lack of institutional will to investigate the full extent of the Epstein network. The conduct of the hearing was marked by significant tension. The clear-throated Attorney General frequently interrupted the questioners. The committee chair had to be asked to stop the clock and remind the witness of the rules. Observers noted that the Attorney General seemed to be trying to run out the clock on the members' time by giving long, non-responsive answers or by asking her own questions of the committee. This behavior has led to calls for more stringent rules to prevent witnesses from using whataboutisms to avoid accountability. The representative from Illinois provided a scathing assessment of Bondi's tenure. He called her one of the worst attorney generals in history and an instrument of an authoritarian agenda. He accused her of weaponizing the DOJ to target immigrants and political enemies while protecting powerful criminals. He specifically mentioned the cover-up of the Epstein files as grounds for impeachment. He also listed other alleged abuses, including the firing of over 100 immigration judges without cause and the installation of unqualified military judges. The Illinois representative also accused the Attorney General and Kash Patel of covering up the murder of Silvius Gonzalez by IC agents. He claimed that the DOJ tried to investigate the victims instead of the agents responsible. These allegations paint a picture of a Department of Justice that is failing in its mission to promote public safety and protect citizens from brutalization by federal agents. In contrast, Republican members of the committee praised the Attorney General's leadership. They cited statistics showing a decrease in the murder rate and an increase in the apprehension of human traffickers. They focused on the department's efforts to combat sanctuary cities and non-citizen voting. They argued that the administration is making America safe by getting rid of gangs like MS-13 and TDA. They also highlighted the department's work in reducing the immigration court case backlog. However, these points were often used to distract from the specific questions regarding Ghislaine Maxwell and the Epstein files. Whenever the Attorney General was pressed on why Maxwell received perks, she or her allies would shift the conversation to immigration or violent crime in other cities. This is a classic rhetorical strategy used to avoid answering for specific failures and oversight. The public reaction to the hearing has been overwhelmingly negative. Comments from the source material describe the Attorney General as a total disgrace and an embarrassment. There is a sense that the legal system is a joke and that corruption is more obvious than ever before. The fact that only one woman, Maxwell, is in jail despite hundreds of men being involved in the trafficking ring is a major point of public anger. The legal consequences of this testimony are significant. If it is proven that the Attorney General lied about the facility level, she could be convicted of perjury. Her claim that the transfer was the same level facility is a specific factual statement that can be easily disproven by prison records. The American judicial system relies on the truthfulness of those who testify under oath, and when the highest law enforcement officer is perceived to be lying, it undermines the entire system. There are also procedural questions about the Bureau of Prisons. If the DOJ is in charge of the BOP, then the Attorney General is ultimately responsible for every transfer. The attempt to distance herself from the Maxwell transfer is seen as a sign of either incompetence or a cover-up. The American people are asking who signed off on the transfer and why the Attorney General does not know the answer to that question. The institutional accountability for these actions will involve the continued work of the House Judiciary Committee. They have the authority to conduct oversight of the Department of Justice. They can continue to demand the release of the Epstein files and ask for more information about the ties between Trump officials and Jeffrey Epstein. The calls for impeachment are a serious procedural step that would involve a trial in the Senate. The professional judgment on the Attorney General's fitness is that she has failed to meet the standards of her office. Her use of Irina Zarutka's death as a shield to avoid talking about sex trafficking is considered particularly repulsive by observers. It is a misuse of a tragedy to avoid accountability for a failure in justice. Her behavior during the hearing has been described as that of a spoiled brat and a national outrage. The final verdict on this matter is not yet in. The procedural steps are moving forward. The Department of Justice remains under intense scrutiny. The evidence shows that a convicted sex offender receives special privileges after a meeting with a top government official. The Attorney General's defense of this action has been found wanting. The rule of law requires that these questions be answered and that those responsible be held to account. The accountability process is slow but deliberate. We will continue to follow the legal filings in the committee reports. The facts remain the facts. The law remains the law. The truth of who authorized the Maxwell transfer will eventually be part of the public record. We will be here to analyze that record when it is released. This has been a forensic news analysis of the Bondi hearing. We have examined the claim that Maxwell was moved to a same-level facility and found it to be a lie. We have looked at the evidence of perks and political meetings. We have analyzed the law regarding prison transfers and DOJ oversight. We have assessed the fitness of the Attorney General. The next steps are procedural and institutional. The American people deserve a justice system that is transparent and fair. They deserve an Attorney General who can answer direct questions about high-profile cases. They deserve accountability for those who use their power to protect the connected. We will continue to provide these reports as more information becomes available. For further developments on the Epstein files and the ongoing investigations into the Department of Justice, ensure you are receiving our updates. The integrity of our institutions depends on a well-informed public that demands the truth. This analysis is based on the provided sources from the House Judiciary Committee hearings and related reports. No outside information has been used. The facts are as stated in the transcripts and the documents of the United States Congress. We have proceeded from claim to evidence to law to accountability. This is the only way to ensure a rigorous examination of the truth. The hearing showed a clear division in the committee. One side sought answers about the Epstein files and prison perks. The other side sought to highlight the administration's successes in other areas. But the questions regarding Ghislaine Maxwell remain. They are specific, they are documented, and they have not been answered. Who signed the papers? Who approved the puppy time? Why was a sex offender moved to a minimum security camp? These are the questions the Attorney General must eventually answer. If she does not, the institutional consequences will be severe. The rule of law cannot survive if the leaders of the law are not themselves subject to it. We conclude this report with a focus on the survivors. They are the ones who suffer when justice is delayed or denied. They are the ones who are traumatized when the powerful are protected. Their search for answers is the ultimate reason for this oversight. We will stay focused on their quest for accountability. This is the end of our forensic examination for tonight. For tonight, the record of the Bondi hearing is now part of the history of the Department of Justice. It is a record of evasion and deflection. It is a record that will be cited in future proceedings. Stay with us as we continue this work. Procedural accountability is the only way forward. We will continue to monitor the Department of Justice. We will continue to analyze the testimony of its leaders. We will continue to report the facts as they are found in the official records. Thank you for your attention to these critical matters of law and justice. The path to the truth is often blocked by those in power, but the evidence has a way of coming to light. The documents exist. The witnesses are on the record. The process will continue. The accountability will be served. This has been a professional news analysis. We remain committed to the facts and the law. We remain committed to holding the powerful to account. We will continue to use the forensic method to examine the actions of our government. Good night. Support the search for institutional integrity by staying informed. Subscribe to this channel for more detailed reports.